Hey guys, Paul here. I got everything ready to go for the Monday Mancast, episode number 4. I've got my tall, sweaty plastic glass of blackcurrant iced tea. I've got my nicotine lozenges. I got my show notes. And I got the big old fat chip on my shoulder. So it looks like I'm good to go. Well, God, we got a lot to cover today. I just did a video on borderlines, on borderline personality disordered women, to be more specific. And like I said in the video, I did this with something in mind. I mean, I had something to get off my chest with this crowd because, as you know, I said in that video that the last time I did one on borderlines, I mean, the video itself went just, viral as far as, but what viral means on my channel, 30,000 hits, something like that. And a lot of the comments filled up. I mean, it was like ants coming into a fucking picnic for these guys. You say something about the way borderlines or even women tend to treat men, and the next thing you know, you've got a cry fest going on. You've got moaning and whining and gnashing of teeth and calling me all kinds of names. I'm just calling things like I see them, folks. And I wanted to come back and visit the subject again because I wanted to see what would happen. So far, they've not showed up, and that suits me quite fine. I would rather that they didn't. I have a dream. I do. I have a dream that someday we can talk about men's issues without some crazy cunt showing up to tell us to shut up. Not that I would, or that you would, or that any of us will, but they do show up to tell us to shut up, to tell me to shut up in particular here. And, I thought I'd just keep fucking with them till they got the message that ain't nobody shutting up. And if they want to have any hope of getting me quiet, the best thing to do is to just shut up themselves. Stay away from this channel, borderlines. Don't want anything to do with you, but I do have to warn people about you, so I'm going to go into a little bit more of that right now. I named that first video, You Can Spot a Borderline from a Mile Away, and I reiterated that in my last talk, and guess what, though? That is probably an understatement. And how is that an understatement, you might ask? Well, I'll tell you how it's an understatement, because the truth is, in some situations, you don't even have to see a borderline to recognize them. And no, that's not an exaggeration. Test. And no, that's not an exaggeration. Let me put it this way. One of the things that you do in a treatment setting, and I'm giving you the example of a substance abuse treatment center, but any mental health, psychiatric facility, or medical for that matter, what you do is you have a staffing, what we called staffing, and it's a weekly meeting where all the clinical staff would come in one group with a couple of shrinks there and other supervisory staff, and we'd all discuss our cases for the week. And the idea is, you got, maybe 4 or 5 clinical people in there with a caseload of 20, sometimes 30 people each. So you can imagine if you're trying to get through this meeting in an hour or two, everybody only gets, you get like 30 seconds to a minute, sum up where your case is, where they stand with insurance, and move on to the next case so that we can put in our little books that we actually address the care of the clients. But you'd notice in those meetings that they would get stuck. You could go into any one of those meetings, especially in a substance abuse treatment setting, and find the staff would get stuck on one client. And they would be talking, all of them, in a circle. All the other clients in and out, 30 seconds, a minute, boom, done. And you get to one client, and the next thing you know, everybody in the fucking room is talking about them and their latest antics and almost obsessing on them. There's your borderline. Don't even have to look at her. There's your borderline, because that's what borderlines do. They get under people's skin. They will have entire groups of people obsessing on them. They certainly have their, I hate to use the word romantic partner because there's not much romantic about being involved with a borderline. I mean, there's some hot sex usually involved, but in terms of romance, not so much. But in terms of their significant relationships, their involvements with other people in the romantic sense, that person will end up obsessing on them too, because borderlines consume your fucking life. That's what they're about. They have to be the center of attention at all times. And if you've never been with one, you can thank your lucky stars, because if you do get with one, you will have a new definition for what center of the universe means. I mean, they don't even want you to check the fucking mail without taking them with you, or at least inviting them, because they feel abandoned. And we can go into a million other things, but I've covered it all before about the diagnostic stuff. But there's other ways that you can spot borderlines, especially in a substance abuse treatment setting, without looking at them. We used to have a setup on one campus I worked on, a residential treatment center that was done in this, it's actually kind of a cool place. It was all set up in large houses, big 2-story houses in I would call it a early 20th century neighborhood, very old houses, but in very good shape. Great sort of rustic old neighborhood with large oak trees, beautiful setting. And we had these houses set up to house our clients. And there was a nursing station at the very back of the campus and at the very front of the campus. And you could see straight through the campus to the front building, administration, was where people were admitted. And I would often be back there in the nursing station. I had one partner I worked with, a woman who was a counselor back there, and we would sit in the nursing station during an admission and wait for the client to come out and make that long walk back from administration to the nursing station. And then you would see it. Some girl come around the corner, hair the size of fucking Montana, mascara on so thick that you'd have to take it off with a shovel, like snakeskin boots, ripped sweatshirt, flash dance look going. Boom, borderline. Boom, titty dancer. Boom, hooker. Boom, trouble. And that's one of the few situations that I can think of where my sex actually worked for me, because I'd turn to my partner and I'd say, she's yours. Because it was common knowledge in our field to try to keep borderlines away from male staff as much as possible. So I would tell my partner, she's yours, she's in your group, she's in your individual caseload, she has nothing to do with me, and I could get away with it because they knew I was right. I mean, this is the kind of client you wouldn't shut the fucking door on. But I would end up dealing frequently with their families, and especially whatever poor schmuck they were married to or living with, and it was the same sad story there all the time. Those guys, oh man, shit. Well, as I saw in the comments to my last video, some of you guys have been there with borderlines, you know it. That's the sort of shit that I had to deal with on a regular basis, but it made me the lucky one, because the guys I were dealing with that live with these women were dealing with a fuck ton more shit than I ever was. And that's sort of where some of the Gallows humor comes from. I mean, I know that I've had, and I guess it's a fair complaint, I've had a few people come into the comments on some of these videos and say, oh man, you're poking fun at the expense of mentally ill people. Well, yeah, I mean, I gotta raise the old guilty hand for that one. I am doing that. I'm poking fun at the expense of some mentally ill people. But what only thing I'll offer in my defense, and I think most people can relate to this, is that when you work up to your eyeballs in this shit, imagine having a caseload of 30 and you've got maybe 5 or 6 in the middle of that every fucking day of your life. You're dealing with this misery, not to mention the misery that drug addicts and alcoholics feel and their families feel all the time. When you stay immersed in that 8 or 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, you either develop a sense of gallows humor or you fucking fall off the end of a cliff yourself, because it's the only way to make it through all that pain. You detach from it, and sometimes you do that with humor. I don't mean that to intend to harm people that are mentally ill or to make them feel bad about themselves. But that is the way that I've survived that work, and I'll probably continue to carry that with me for the rest of my life. But I think it's important, and I wish I could follow through with some of the advice of my sage partners from years past and in the mental health field. One running joke that I heard many times over is, what's a treatment plan for a borderline? The answer is you don't treat them, you ignore them. And there's a lot of fucking truth to that. I mean, this is some hardcore stuff. This is what mental health professionals talk like when they're not around paying clients that might be offended by what they have to say. This is the reality of it. When your profession is to immerse yourself in the total destruction and pain and devastation that's going on in the lives of your clients and having to help them sort all this mess out and try to find a way to not only take on their addiction, but to heal from all this shit that's been going on, you develop a bit of gallows humor. And I guess that would apply to the next thing I'm going to talk about. And it has to do with this very much because one of the biggest problems with borderline personalities is male enabling. It's white knights. White knights get themselves into so much shit. I've got a news story here. I'm not going to read it all to you. I'm just going to give you the short of it. But another one bites the dust, guys. San Antonio, Texas, 2 days ago. Some guy was apparently wailing on a woman in his car, domestic dispute. Another guy drives up and says, "Hey, man, you got to stop that," to the guy. The guy pulls out a pistol. Boom. Shoots him dead. I'll put a link to the story in the low bar, but I'm not going to read every line of it. It is just a short story, and I think maybe mercifully so. But, I did a video on Jason Cisneros. The same thing happened a few months ago, just right down, not too far, within less than 5 miles from where I live. Man and a woman arguing. A woman is making a lot of noise like she needs help. So, of course, this guy, Cisneros, was like 19 years old. He goes up, tells the guy to stop, and the guy kills him. God, when will men ever learn? Shit. I don't know. I guess that's why I do what I do. And that brings me to something else that I need to bring up. And I'm not saying any of this tongue in cheek. I'm not making any gallows humor about it, dead serious. I just got a couple more emails, and my emails are frequent. I've gotten a bunch of emails over the borderline video. And as I expected, I got one from a man that is now in like one of the worst stages of his life. He's been served with divorce papers. He's been falsely accused. He has scraped up the money for a lawyer. And he's writing me asking what he can do for help. And what I'm going to do is that I'm going to send him a link back to this video for him to listen. And it's not that I don't think he deserves an individual answer. Hell, everybody that writes me deserves an answer. And I can't always get to them because so many guys write me when things are this bad. And I got to tell you, I'm not expecting, hugs or sympathies for it. But it bothers me that I've had to write back so many guys and tell them there's nothing I can do. There's no help here. I don't have any words of wisdom. If you're already caught up in a family court, and as in this case, he told me that the court was already feeding in 100%, of course, to what the borderline has to say and coming at him with all guns. He's outnumbered, feels alone, desperate, wondering how he got to this place, wondering what he should do. And here's the deal, guys. What you do is you get a lawyer and you hope. And if you're a praying person, pray for the best. Hope for the best. Get a lawyer, fight hard. I can suggest very strongly you'll probably find some tips in the book I wrote with Dr. T, Say Goodbye to Crazy, because there is some tips on how to conduct yourself, but that can minimize damage, and they're very effective if you use them. But I get a feeling this isn't exactly what this guy was writing for. He was writing to ask me, tell me something I can do to undo this mess. And you know what? There's not anything I can tell him. There is no sage wisdom. There's damage control. And that's it, because there's going to be damage. There is risk minimizing, but only risk minimizing because there's going to be risk. Once you get in the sights of a borderline personality, especially if they have any kind of cause to go into a family court to come after you, part of your life for at least a while is fucked. And there's no organization out there. There's no individual. Unless you got, fucking O.J. Simpson defense fund of millions of dollars, all you can do is your best. Hope that you're lucky enough that you get a lawyer that doesn't just, take your 10 grand deposit and then not return your calls, which about 90% of them do. You can hope that you get lucky with lawyers. You hope that you get lucky with the family court judge, but you're probably not going to. This is why it's important, guys. Before you walk up to a car playing White Knight and get your ass shot, before you end up going into a family court with them asking you questions like, how many times did you beat her before you raped her? Preventative medicine, guys. That's what this whole fucking channel is about. That's what my work is about. Because I'm sad to say that if I'm going to be brutally honest, after the fact is not the time to write me. The time to write me where I might be able to give you advice is the first time that you see the signs that there's some borderline shit or just some female shit going on that looks wrong, that looks potentially dangerous. The first time you fucking see it, you write me then. And then we can talk. But if you've already been served and they're setting court dates and she's lined up her witnesses against you and she's already working on your family, turning them around to fuck you over, I can't help you. I just can't. And I hate that. I hate it. You have no idea. But that's the way it is. That's the reality. And I hate to close on such a bummer of a note, but that is going to be the close for today's talk. So maybe, I guess, something upbeat I can offer is if you're a guy listening to this and you're not in that situation, consider this a caution and consider it maybe the day you take the opportunity to make sure that you don't ever end up having to write me saying, how do I pull this fucking log out of my ass that this bitch shoved up there with the help of a family court? Because if you never go through that experience, I don't think it takes more than common sense to figure out you'll be better off for it. And that is it for the free YouTube version of the Monday Mancast, guys. I'll continue here rambling on for another 30 or 40 minutes for my Patreon subscribers. By the way, the response to that so far has been pretty good. So if you want to get in on that, just make a pledge of any amount to the Patreon. And basically the way that works, I know I'm beating a dead horse here. If you pledge $1 per video and then cap it out at $1, you still get access to the remainder of these Mancasts. So go in and do that. And if you're listening to this now, you can go in now, pledge your $1, and then get access to the rest of it and continue listening. Going to also close with my now standard pitch these days. Red Pill movie, fucking masterpiece of correcting disinformation about men and the men's rights movement. It's almost still, I mean, I've seen it twice and it still feels surreal to me to know that it's out there and that people are watching it. They're gearing up to do this in a lot of foreign countries right now. You'll hear more from me on that later. But right now, on December 15th, that's a Thursday night at 7 p.m. at the River Oaks Theater in Houston, Texas, I will be hosting a screening of the Red Pill movie and having a Q&A afterward. Joining me for the Q&A will be attorney Robert Franklin. He was not in the movie, but he is a longtime men's advocate and an expert on a lot of the legal issues facing men. So we'll have him there for the Q&A. We're going to wrap that up in about 30 minutes, and then we're all going to head out to a local establishment in order to imbibe some things. We would like you to join us. There is a link in the low bar for that. So check it out, folks. Coming up on the extended version here, we got some current batshit crazy stuff from the world of SJWs. Like, that shit is hard to find. I'm going to talk about my story on the alleged MGTOW riff and keeping MGTOW in perspective. And yes, I will be pissing on some sacred cows. And let's see what else. I'm going to talk about some personal changes in my life. And that will be just about it. It'll wrap it up. So with that, I'm going to sign off for the YouTube crowd saying thank you guys for listening. Thanks for all the support you give to this channel. And we'll see you next time.